Don Le Batard.
Listen, when the shows are good, I give myself all the credit, just so you know what I do in my own head here. And when they're bad, I blame you.
But I want you to know that how many times today I have felt like I have sent a conversation your way only to see it crash into the gutter.
Stugats.
Like the number of times that's happened today, it's like a record. I believe we have set a record for number of conversations that have died on your lap. That's what I felt probably a dozen times today.
And I felt uninteresting questions and topics come my way about a dozen times today.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugats on ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. In November, Progressive is giving thanks for our military servicemen and women by donating over 100 vehicles to veterans in need through its Keys to Progress program. This is very, very cool. To learn more, go to progressive.com/keys to progress. Guest on the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Jonah Carey going to join us in just a second on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Here's your SportsCenter update. World Series, Cubs at Indians, Game 7 tonight. Kyle Hendricks, Corey Kluber, 8 Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, Vikings offensive coordinator Norm Turner has resigned. And finally, Terry Francona once consumed 17 popsicles in one night. This SportsCenter is brought to you by Barbasol. America, you're looking good. You're shaving with Close, comfortable Barbasol shaving cream. Close Shave America, Close Shave Barbasol. For all the latest headlines and information, tune to the SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
Guillermo, earlier in the show, I referred to $150 as a $1.50. Put that up on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show. Referring to $150 as a $1.50. Jerk or no jerk? Jonah Carey with us now. He's the baseball person that you want to talk to. He's very good on the subject of analysis. He does a good job of combining metrics with astute baseball analysis. So he's going to be on with us in a minute. If you want to reach the show, at Le Batard Show is where you reach us on Twitter. You can watch the show on ESPNU. You can listen to it on over 300 radio stations, close to 400, and on Sirius XM Channel 80 as well. Jonah Carey joins us now. Thank you, as always, for making the time for us. We were telling a Tony La Russa story before you came on, Jonah, and Tony La Russa didn't have credentials for the game last night. Somebody asked him where his credentials were. He held out his World Series ring and said, "How about this?" And that was allowed into the ballpark. Does that move strike you as jerk or no jerk?
I guess it depends on who the person is. I'm not the biggest Tony La Russa fan, so maybe slight jerk. I think that if it was like Tim Raines, who doesn't have, he does have a World Series ring. He has two, I think. Then I would say, sure, Tim Raines is great.
Man, you've got this Expo bias. You've got this
really
weird
does.
thing. Like
That's
anything,
right.
Anything.
Listen, you're asking me a personal question.
It's just weird that you would go to Tim Raines of all people. Like what?
No, it's not weird. It's not weird at all because this is Tim Raines' last year on the ballot, and the second the World Series ends, which is in less than 24 hours, that is all I'm going to do with my November and December is lead the campaign to get that homie into the Hall of Fame because it's his last chance.
All right. But if you had a World Series ring, you, Jonah Carey, had a World Series ring, but you forgot your credential to a World Series game and security would not let you through, would you flash your World Series ring and say, how about this?
No, because I'm a polite Canadian. I would not pull rank ever on anybody.
Why are you not a fan of Tony La Russa?
Oh, gee. Let's see. DUI, that would be one reason. The fact that the way that he runs a team is laughable, and he basically made a mess of the Diamondbacks is another one. He's not a pleasant individual, and he's not particularly good at his job.
Jonah, the DUI, you're sitting here. Tim Raines has one of the great baseball stories of all time, which is that he was sliding on his stomach to protect the cocaine vial in his back pocket of his uniform pants. Like,
Did he drive back to his apartment afterwards? He did not. Whatever you put in your own body is fine. Just don't get behind the wheel of a car.
Right, fair enough.
Better rationalize that one.
Well, I mean, he had it ready, right?
Yes, you're right. It's rationalized.
He had that ready.
Recreational substance use is always horrible, and sitting in the comfort of your own home or the ballpark is exactly the same thing as endangering lives on the road. You're right. Definitely right.
He had that so ready. You got to admit that's one of the great stories of all time. Tim Raines sliding on his stomach to protect the cocaine vial in the back pocket of his pants.
It is indeed. I don't think there are too many other ball players that can make that claim.
So the World Series last night, is there an explanation that makes sense to you? Because it did seem weird, the idea of Joe Madden, brilliant strategist, using up some 102-mile-an-hour pitches when he could use Chapman tonight, and he had such a big lead.
Well, and I wrote about it at CBS Sports today. Basically, I'm okay with him bringing him in the seventh. There were 2 on and 2 out, and whatever. If somebody gets into one, then it's a 7-5 game. That I can kind of understand. The 8th inning puzzled me, but, he got out of the 7th very quickly. Maybe if he throws a couple pitches in the 8th, all right. But then when you get to the 9th and he's like, all right, now we're up 9-2. Let's keep riding this guy. That I didn't understand. Listen, it's only 20 pitches. There was an off day yesterday. I'm aware of all that. I'm also aware that Joe Madden has better knowledge of his players than I do. I'm not claiming omniscience or anything like that. But if there's even like a 0.1% chance that they jeopardize Chapman's ability, and I'm not talking about save his arm or what's his future like. I mean, literally tonight, if there's any chance that he can only go 2 instead of 2/3 tonight, or 1 2/3 instead of 2, or that he's slightly less effective, or that his fastball is only 99 instead of 100, then it makes no sense. There was no reason to do that. It was paranoia. Madden has been hung up on the fact that Rondon and Strop, who are his main setup men, were hurt earlier this year. He doesn't seem to trust them. He doesn't seem to put them into any game. So we're down to basically Chapman and pray is how he's managing games, which is kind of a silly way to do it.
It's weird. No matter how you approach it, right? And I'm not the guy who sits here and questions people who have more invested in me and know more than I do. We do it all the time in baseball, but I'm not one who does that very often. But almost universally throughout baseball, it was weird.
Well, sure. And by the way, it's our job. It's your job. It's my job to specifically do that. We don't claim to be smarter than Joe Madden or better at analyzing baseball games, or sports in general, but that's still our job. And I don't buy the appeal to authority. I'm not saying you're doing it, but other people are like, who are you to say? You played 1 year of Little League and you suck. Yep, that's true, but still, it's not like we can't sit there and criticize anything. If the President of the United States does something we think is dumb, just because we've never been President of the United States doesn't mean we can't say, hey, that was really dumb. Try not to do that again. So I'm not buying that line of argument, and I think that your instinct is correct, and it's not for nothing that the entire baseball world thought it was a bad move, because it was a bad move.
Oh, no. Hold on a second. It might be your job. I'm not even disputing that it's your job. You're very good at this. Mm-hmm. It's not my job. I don't do that. I'm not the one who sits here and spends a lot of time second-guessing the moves of people who have more information than I do, although I'm willing to do it more in baseball than I would be anywhere else, because you can actually have all the data and individual measurements. You are capable of having just as much information as Joe Madden. Jonah Carey.
Sure, but I think you could do it in other sports. I mean, I'm assuming you got on Pete Carroll for the Marshawn Lynch decision in the Super Bowl, right?
Not really.
All right. Well, I mean, that was pretty, I'm not a football expert by any means, but, that seems like it was not a great move either. Yes, Pete Carroll had more information available than the rest of us, but I don't know. He's got the best running back in the league. They need 1 yard. Seemed like that might have been a smart move, maybe, possibly.
Yeah, it was a horrible move, and Madden's move last night was horrible as well. I'm totally comfortable doing it. Dan's not. Jonah, I tell you can manage one of these teams tonight with the obvious goal of winning a World Series. Which team are you choosing?
Oh, in terms of personnel, I mean, I probably would rather have the...
Yeah, go ahead. I want you to just focus on tonight. The pitching matchup, Indians with home field advantage. Chapman, his arm might be tired.
Does that mean anything? Does home field advantage mean anything in that sport? Like right now, for this game, does Cleveland being at home, I mean, it certainly didn't help him any last night. Does it mean anything tonight?
Statistically, every sport has a home field advantage. It's roughly the same in every sport. In baseball, it's basically about 52.5% likely that the home team will win, about 47.5% that the road team will win. There are all kinds of factors that go into it. Sometimes it's umpiring. Sometimes umpires, even if they don't realize it, can be influenced by the home crowd. Not always, but sometimes. Sometimes it's a last lick situation, and last licks has to do with how managers use closers, especially. They're reluctant to use a closer on the road, at least in the regular season. Now, in these playoffs, all the conventions have been blown up, and we could see a Aroldis Chapman come in the third inning. So, maybe that's not necessarily going to hold. I would say that there is a minor thing going on. But to the larger point of whether I'd rather manage the Indians or the Cubs tonight, the Cubs have a better team than the Indians do. I mean, that is what it comes down to. One thing that I wrote about today in my column was talking about the Indians' outfield. I mean, it's real bad. It's really, really bad. We saw it last night. Tyler Naquin and Lonnie Chisenhall biffed one play, almost biffed another. Naquin hasn't hit at all since August 1st, started his career great, but has been bad for 3 months. Chisenhall is a really bad defender. We saw him misplay a couple balls in Wrigley. He's a fair hitter, but he can be had as well. If Coco Crisp is 37 years old, didn't have a good regular season, but had a couple hits in the playoffs as your best guy, you got a problem. And this goes back to the injury to Michael Brantley, who, maybe it's forgotten, maybe in the national scale isn't necessarily all that known, but he's an all-star. He's a terrific player. He played 11 games this year. He's out for the season. And so the Cubs just have, more depth, more guys who can beat you. They have good players pretty much all over the diamond. The Indians are kind of doing this on fumes and bullpens at this point, which is the shout-out to that bullpen and to Terry Francona. The fact that they're even here is pretty incredible.
Give me 30 seconds, please, on short rest and the idea of Kluber going tonight on short rest.
It just means that he's probably not going to throw as many pitches. He went on short rest in Game 6. He threw 81 pitches, and that was 6 innings of one-run ball. It doesn't seem like it affects his performance. It just seems like it affects his length. Length is not a problem because Miller's fully rested, Shaw is fully rested, and Cody Allen is fully rested. Andrew Miller might throw 42 innings tonight. I'm not worried at all about those guys. So that's going to be fine. If Kluber gives them like 4 or 5 great innings, which he totally can, they will be in good shape.
Thank you, Jonah. Always appreciate the insight.
Thank you, fellas.
You are listening to the Magic City's Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugats on ESPN Radio. Dan Le Batard.
I do wish that Von Miller would embrace sort of a little more ravishing Rick Rude.
Stugats.
Ladies, feast your eyes on this sack dance.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugats on ESPN Radio.
Get in touch with the show anytime through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed at Le Batard Show at Stugat790. Dan, it is time for Straight Talk. It's presented by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, half the cost.
Roy, can you edit that rejoin? I think it's funnier. Ladies, feast your eyes on this sack. Get rid of the word dance, even though I said the word dance. It's funnier if it's just sack. And Allison, can you get me the surgical lasery farter? Thank you. Get her before the end of the show. I'd like to talk to her. Texter writes in, hey, Dan, you know that being a high-paid radio personality requires some polite temperament to your guests. Don't make it obvious that you hated Jonah and his interview. You're a rude diva who owes Jonah Carey an apology. Jonah, did you think I was rude?
Never, dude. No, you treat me with tons of respect, and you always say nice things about my work. And of course, you challenge people on the radio. If I say blah blah blah, this guy used this, and you say, how about this guy used this? That is good radio. No, of course, man. And in fact, I'm going to be in Miami in a couple weeks. Hell, I'd love to come by.
All right, cool. Thank you.
There you go.
No, you can't come by. That would have been the better joke.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's
Thank
the
you.
joke you were going to make there.
Thank you. Yeah, I blew it. That's my fault. I ruined the joke.
Mm-hmm.
Mike back there has been collecting some of the comments that have been put together underneath my tuxedo choice. I have chosen a tuxedo for Pablo Torre's highfalutin top deck of the Titanic wedding this Saturday. Everyone here has criticized my tuxedo choice. I'm probably going to have to change it now at some point.
There's no probably, man. You got to change it.
Well, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it. Well, we're going to see how some of these votes come back at Le Batard Show, because I'm wondering whether people would trade. We've got a trade offer to the audience right now. One future grid of death punishment I don't have to do if I wear this tuxedo and do the show in it tomorrow, which is in and of itself a grid of death punishment. And there is the chance you will never see me in this tuxedo because I might return it, because the reaction to it has been so bad. But I went and got a tuxedo. I chose very poorly. And Mike Ryan has some of the comments that are under this tuxedo at Le Batard Show on Twitter. What does it say?
What are you two white tigers wearing?
That's funny.
What time is the duel? Are you going to a wedding or the Hunger Games? I imagine this is what Michael Jordan would wear to his own funeral.
What?
Noted fashion icon.
Yeah.
Glad to see you join the Kings of Comedy. Cool to see the Prime Minister of India got invited to Pablo's wedding.
The Prime Minister of India is what I'm
Google it.
giving off? Really?
Google it.
The Prime Minister of India. All right.
Nice of John Travolta to lend you that.
That's not what you want to be going for, is Travolta.
Good luck finding Neo Morpheus. Are you going to Pablo's wedding or the 1994 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction? And this one's from Pablo. You look ready to be a guest at a Johnny Depp movie with a Rotten Tomatoes below 50%.
I mean, you really need to do something here because it's supposed to be her big day, and she's supposed to be center stage. And I'm telling you, you walk into that wedding with that tuxedo, you're going to be center stage. You're going to be the topic of conversation.
Wait a minute. Get Pablo on the phone here. Does Pablo really think that this is an unacceptable tuxedo? Because if he does, I might wear it just for that reason alone, because he's inconveniencing me so many different ways and all his guests.
It might not even be Pablo. Might be the future Mrs. Story.
Oh, we don't know who's commenting on this? Okay, very good. You heard Jonah Carey mention the idea of the advantages of being able to play a game where you have last licks, right? The advantage, the idea of you get the last at bat so you can do all the strategizing within that gives you the comfort of the last at bat. And there's an advantage of that in being at home. But you know what I've thought of before? And I know that the greatest advantage in football overtime is getting the ball first and being able to win the game with a touchdown on your first possession. But does that outweigh, and I know everyone thinks it does that outweigh appreciably the advantage of knowing that you have 4 downs every time after a field goal to get 10 yards instead of 3 in overtime? Because it does outweigh the advantage, but I really want my team to get 4 downs
Right.
to get 10 yards.
I understand that, but I mean, it's impossible for that to outweigh that. I mean, you have a chance to end the game. First possession, you have a chance to
I'm
end
not
the game.
saying it doesn't outweigh it. I'm saying, does it outweigh it by that much? Like, clearly it outweighs it, but the idea of being...
No, it does. No, it does not outweigh it that much.
In fact, let's do it this way. Which situation would you prefer to be in? How about this way? Your team is playing in a game in overtime. Which position do you want to be in? Do you want to be the team that just scored a field goal and is giving the ball back? Or do you want to be the team that has 4 downs to get 10 yards on every possession to get back into the position to tie the game with just a field goal? Which do you want if you don't score the touch? You want the ball first, obviously, because you want to end the game the way the Cowboys did with a touchdown or the way the Raiders did this weekend with a touchdown. And mathematically, I know what you want. The probabilities are in the favor of you want to take the guaranteed points, the field goal. I know what the math is, but I'm talking about as a fan, just in terms of your comfort level. Which do you prefer?
Wow, that's a great question. I take the points. Because you're a play away, a turnover away from the game being over. So, but Dan, there are so many mitigating circumstances. Like, okay, can you tell me who my quarterback is when I get the ball back? Stuff like that. But I'll take the points. Like, I'll take the 3-point lead and take my chances with the defense.
There are mitigating circumstances because if I were the Packers and Aaron Rodgers or one of these teams that if I'm the Patriots, let's make it the Patriots. Now, where are you?
Okay, then I'm fine being down 3 points. I'll take my chance with Tom Brady.
No, but you prefer it. Do you prefer it?
Yes. Yep. Hey, Tom, we're going for it every time. Just go. Tie it up or score a touchdown. Go.
That's interesting, isn't it? That's interesting that your answer would be different.
Well, you're giving me that quarterback.
I know, but it's interesting. It speaks to the advantages that team generally has and how it is that you perceive them, that a situation that you would choose for almost any other team, that with the Patriots, here's where the Patriots are in having perfected offense. This is an amazing thing that I'm about to say about what the Patriots are, because I'm not sure that there are a lot of teams, if any, like this. The Patriots are in the unique position that if you're playing against them in overtime and they have the ball and you've held them to a field goal, you feel like you've won. And if you get a field goal against them and then give them the ball, you're still scared and feel like you've lost. Like, that's a fairly amazing thing that they've pulled off there with their entire offense. Because if you're a fan watching that game, playing against them, you're scared of them in every circumstance.
Of course.
Because this seems like an obvious thing to say. They're so good at touchdowns. You feel like you've won against the Patriots when you get Gostkowski out there. And it's a stupid thing to say, right? They're good at touchdowns. But you feel like you've won if you've held them to merely 3 points.
Major accomplishment if you hold them to 3 points. Isn't that funny?
There aren't a lot of teams that you're doing that with.
No.
Especially in today's NFL where the Vikings are so impotent that they're making Norv Turner quit, and he's a prostitute who will work for anybody.
That is Straight Talk. It is brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable networks.
Drink all day, play all night. Let's get it popping on the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugats on ESPN Radio. Dan Le Batard.
I do wish that Von Miller would embrace sort of a little more ravishing Rick Rude.
Stugats.
Ladies, feast your eyes on this sack.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugats on ESPN Radio.
Roy, I think you need to sculpt that a little bit better. You can almost hear the D in sack. Although that's not terrible if you can hear the D.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guest on the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Jeff Pass is going to be there at noon Eastern. Here's your SportsCenter update. World Series, Cubs at Indians, Game 7 tonight. Kyle Hendricks for the Cubs. Corey Kluber for the Indians, 8 Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, Vikings offensive coordinator Norv Turner has resigned. And finally, there is a man named Bizao Dudu Zop Biddy Bop Bop Bop. He lives in Wisconsin. For a truly mind-blowing underwear experience, switch to Tommy John, the 21st century men's underwear, backed by the best pair you'll ever wear, or it's free guarantee. Save 20% off on your first order with promo code BizowDoodoo-Zop-Biddy-Bop-Bop. No, promo code Miami at TommyJohn.com. That's promo code Miami right now at TommyJohn.com for all the latest headlines and information. Tune in to SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
Allison, can you get him on before the end of the show, please? B-ziddy-doo-doo, diddy-bop, diddy-bop.
It's Bizow-Doo-Doo-Zop-Biddy-Bop-Bop-Bop.
All right, let's get him on, please. Let's get him on before the end of the show. And the surgery laser farter. Both of them. I'd like to talk to both of them before the end of the show. Stugats is doing his own show. He is suffering the selfie stick indignity, the grid of death indignity. He's got to hold a selfie stick all shows, so he's doing a personal show. He just went to the bathroom with the selfie stick. A lot of people reporting on you that you did not wash your hands.
I washed one of my hands. Now, people are claiming they didn't hear any water streaming when I was washing my hands. I'm telling you, I washed one hand. That's it. So I'm admitting to you that I washed a hand.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please. Did Stugats wash a hand? I'd love the idea that he washed the hand that he didn't use. That sounds like something Stugats would do. That he'd wash a hand, but not the one that was rummaging around down there.
Be honest, I didn't use a hand.
Wait a minute.
Sometimes.
What do you mean? No, I don't know what you mean.
Oh, you know what I mean.
I don't know
All
what
guys
you mean.
know what I mean.
I don't know what you mean. Why did you wash a hand? Wait a minute. You don't need to wash a hand if you didn't use a hand.
I did it anyway. Just was in the bathroom. Went in Rome. And so I didn't use a hand here. I just went to the bathroom at the urinal.
Okay, so you just unzipped and it came out by itself? It like was a worm that wiggled out of its reclusive resting place?
I unzipped. I unzipped. I pulled the underwear up, and then I went and took care of my business. Do it all the time.
Wait a minute. From the under, you went under the underwear?
Yeah, I had to improvise because I got the selfie stick in my hand, and yeah, that's what I did.
Well, you just admitted you do it all the time, though, so you don't. You just realized that we're judging
got caught
you.
in the lie.
Yeah. Which one? Which one? Because now we need to explore this dark nether region, this underbelly of the Stugats.
You've never done that, like where you just like you've worn shorts without underwear, and you just.
Well, yes,
right.
Yes, I've done that.
Okay.
We've made fun of Jeff Van Gundy for looking like someone who routinely does that. Jeff Van Gundy came on and said, is there anything wrong with that? Guillermo, put that on the poll too, please, at Le Batard Show. Is there anything wrong with pulling up your shorts or underwear and urinating underneath? Anything wrong with that? But Stugats is trying to cover his tracks here, so let's see if we can get an honest answer to this question. Stugats just went to the bathroom with a selfie stick. He was giving hot takes in there. He gave some opinions on Kevin Sumlin and Texas A&M being in the top 4.
Yeah. Well, it's absurd. I mean, to be honest with you. I mean, they do this every year with this college football playoff. They give you one wacky team so we can all sit around and talk about it. It's contrived. I don't like it. Texas A&M is not a top 4 team in the country. No one thinks that. No one on Texas A&M thinks that.
If you didn't use a hand, why did you wash a hand?
Well,
one of these things is a lie.
Well, how? Tell me how that. Explain that to me. How one of those could be a lie.
Well, you would only feel the need to wash a hand if you'd used a hand. Otherwise, why would you bother to wash a single hand? The only reason to wash a single hand is because you used a hand to rummage around. What is the truth here?
I didn't wash my hands.
Okay, finally. Finally, we had our Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson moment. Was that hard? It's not that hard. Man, why?
I'm embarrassed that I didn't wash my hands.
Well, then don't do it with a selfie stick and the audience watching. Honest to God, man. I
didn't wash my hands.
Why are you a pathological liar? Why?
I mean, pathological is a bit of a stretch, don't you? Don't you think?
I don't think
I don't
it
lie
is.
every day.
I feel like you lie for no reason, and that's the definition of pathological. You lie, although at least here there is a reason. You somehow felt shame for the first time in your life.
Yeah.
Look, man, I don't wash my hands every time, but if I'm doing a live Facebook stream with a selfie stick in my hand,
yeah,
you best believe the people are going to think I do wash my hands all the time.
Do you think the people think that I wash my hands all the time? Selfie stick or no selfie stick?
For posterity's sake, Sue, you gotta.
Yeah, keeping up appearances because you got a live stream and also you're on the selfie stick. There's a better way to make that joke.
There was. I almost hit the
good.
Loser Game Show. There was a joke there.
There was a joke there. Yeah, you got a live stream and also people are watching on the internet.
See? Louder laugh.
Much better.
Thank you. There was some work to do there on Stugats when he said it's small too. There just wasn't enough room to.
Honestly, I feel like I was catching up the whole time. There were so many things there.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Sumlin take?
I love the idea that Stugats was giving hot takes in the bathroom. This Stugats, I think, Mike, how much money would I have to pay Stugats to surgically add that selfie stick to his arm, but with the promise that he could perpetually be doing a show, a sports show, in which a lot of people would be watching, where he'd have to surgically implant. He would have to surgically implant a selfie stick that he would walk around with at all times. I do think that there's an amount of money that I could give Stugats. Do you remember there was a guy who famously took a bet? There was a guy who famously took a bet to add fake breasts. He was a notorious gambler, and for $1 million or something, he had to have fake breasts for a year, and he did it. There was a man who was on our show. We talked to him. What would be the salary I would have to give Stugats? How many people? Well, see, it's not even the salary, Mike, that I think I need to give him. I think it's the audience that I need to give him.
It's the audience, because I honestly don't think the number is that high in terms of what you'd have to pay him.
To surgically add and not think of any of the inconveniences that would come with having, instead of a left hand, a selfie stick. that you can't really use your left hand for anything.
Right. Now I can control this. Like I can turn it on and off as I please, correct? Or it has to be streaming 24/7. I do need some private time, you know?
I mean, yeah, but
you know what I mean?
What's the number if we do give you that ability?
Hold on. I need to talk this out a little bit because I do think that we can absolutely get Disney to pay for a surgery. Like, I think that this is something that we could have and then never be able to remove it. That Stugotz would get stuck with not measuring consequences. For example, I had a friend of mine recently who was jumping a fence and tore his bicep. And so he tore a single bicep, and he didn't do any of the math of, like, for example, how hard it is to wipe with your left hand when you've never had to wipe with your left hand. Like, Stugotz wouldn't measure any of the consequences. He would just see audience listening to his hot takes. And so then he's in the bathroom all of a sudden, and he can't figure out how to wash his hair. He can't figure out how to do much of anything without basically what we're saying is, would Stugotz give his left hand in exchange for being able to have his hot takes listened to?
To have an audience have it for more than the 4 hours a day that I currently have it.
Yes, to have it all the time, to have it whenever you please. In fact, I would make it, I would give you the addendum of being able to turn on and off the selfie stick whenever you want. But whenever you turn it on, you magically, like a genie's wish, get audience. Audience listening to your hot takes.
I think you can do it for $34.
Too high, Dan.
Liam, can we get Disney to pay for this? How do we get Disney?
If we can get it sponsored, yes.
Okay, if we can get it sponsored.
Yeah, because I think I'd pay Disney.
All right, how do we do this, Mike? How do we get a sponsor to pay to surgically replace Stugotz's left hand with a selfie stick? Now, audience, I need your help here. Audience, you have to be available to Stugotz to listen to all these awful Kevin Sumlin takes.
They'll be there.
Payday, payday, it is payday.
If you own a business and are in need of fresh blood on your staff roster, you should let the experts in recruitment give you the help you need. ZipRecruiter. Let ZipRecruiter use its tools to better your business. Tell them more, Stugotz.
No doubt, guys. If you want to find the perfect hire, you need to post your job on all the top job sites. And now you can. With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post your job to 100-plus job sites, including social media networks like Facebook and Twitter, all with a single click. Find candidates in any city or industry nationwide. Just post once and watch your qualified candidates roll into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. No juggling emails or calls to your office. Quickly screen candidates, rate them, and hire the right person fast. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by over 1 million businesses. And right now, listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/Dan. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Dan. One more time, try it for free. Go there today. It's ZipRecruiter.com/Dan.
Estás en sintonía con el Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Ferguson, the right people, the right products, right around the corner. Visit Ferguson.com today.
Dan Le Batard.
Jeff Van Gundy looked like the guy at the gym who pees out of the bottom of his shorts.
Stugotz.
Is that a wrong thing?
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
It is time to bring you the inside access into college football. The college football playoff rankings have been released, and an interesting decision was made in the top four. Find out what Chris Lowe knows at ESPN.com/college-football. That's the inside access. It is brought to you by AT&T. AT&T covers over 99% of all Americans, which makes it easy for you to connect with family and friends. AT&T, mobilizing your world.
Baseball wins tonight, man. Baseball wins big. This is the dream scenario in every way for that sport. If you had to draw it up for the people who run that league, how do you get football out of the news stream? How do you beat basketball? How do you beat the Warriors? you cannot concoct a set of circumstances. In fact, I dare you to come up with something fictional that you believe to be better, all of sports, not just baseball, something fictional that you believe to be better, one game for the title, these two franchises. Give me something in your imagination that you believe would be better than what baseball gets tonight, which is not just these two franchises,
right,
but these two franchises and all that history, one game.
I mean, they won just, with the Cubs being there, right? Like the Cubs being in the World Series, Major League Baseball won. I'm going to present you with a real scenario that could have possibly happened. If it was Cubs-Yankees, would it be bigger? Or you're saying you have these two teams who haven't won in so long?
I don't think so, man. When you look at Cleveland's ratings in Cleveland, they're bigger than the ratings for LeBron in Cleveland.
Hypothetically speaking, if the Red Sox never won the World Series and they were in this situation against the Cubs.
But that would be better.
But this is that kind of with Cleveland. But I understand when you say Red Sox
and
more.
Also, hypothetically speaking, maybe if LeBron hadn't won that city a title just a couple of months ago, this would be even bigger.
Yes. It's just crazy how perfect it is that the Cubs got it to Game 7.
It's going to be fun, man.
Texter writes in here, did Dan just say he had a friend tear his bicep jumping a fence? Why is Dan hanging out with the little rascals? Does he have a slingshot in his pants? That is a great text. I don't think many of you know who the little rascals are.
Put it on the poll. I'm serious because I'm with you. I don't think many people in our audience know who the little rascals are.
You're overlooking the classic '90s reboot film that several people in my generation.
All right, what at Le Batard Show? Do you know
Bug
who the
Hall
little
played Alfalfa?
At Le Batard Show, do you know who the little rascals are? Somebody writes in here. Are you guys going to get a hold of Pablo? Pablo has sent some texts. We cannot get a hold of Pablo. I am going to his wedding reluctantly. I'm going wearing a rented tux that many of you are mocking, a rented tux that is now all over ESPNU and it's on the internet. And Pablo writes in, headed into a prior commitment, sadly, but please tell Dan that tux looks like Tupac Shakur decided to dress up like a vampire hunter. He also looks like someone who insists on referring to poorly executed magic tricks as illusions. Also, is this actually what he's going to wear? Mike Ryan responded, yes. To which he responded, he looks like someone who wraps his cane on the metal gate of his master's mansion when street urchins come begging, which exactly sounds like something Pablo would write because he's a pompous gasbag who has black tie weddings at the Harvard Club. I mean, he's the worst. How long are those vows going to be? Till December? Him just up there yammering? Oh, my God. Just vows? I love her so dearly. I'll love her until the end of December when my vows end.
So happy I'm not invited. I mean, I'm upset that I'm not invited because, the invite is everything. You just want the acknowledgement that, hey, you're a big part of my life. I would have said no, but I'm glad that I don't have to go to this thing. I actually feel bad for you. I hate going to this stuff. I hate it.
How big a number is this game going to do tonight?
What last night's do we know?
But this one, Game 7s are so giant. We got people writing in here. I haven't watched a baseball game in 15 years, and I'm going to be watching tonight. Because I do believe that this is one of these transcendent sports stories that leaks right out of sports, hence the word transcendent, and grabs everybody. Grabs people who aren't even sports fans. Never mind people who aren't baseball fans. Because this will grab, tonight will grab all sports fans, whether you like baseball or not. But beyond that, it's going to reach outside and it's going to grab the Ellen crowd. It's going to grab the Oprah crowd.
From Deadline.com, the ratings scored a home run.
All right.
14.8 in metered market ratings. That's the best World Series Game 6 has done since 2009 when the Yankees played the Phillies.
It's over 20 million viewers.
I think you run. I want to know. We're going to talk to Jeff Passan in a second, but I think that tonight might be the biggest televised baseball number we've ever seen. Period. We'll talk to Passan about it next.
Mi gente, this is the Dan Le Batard Show on ESPN Radio.